Okay. Let's see. Shh. Hey Larry, how you doing? Hopefully well. There might be some people that are still stuck in ads hell, so I'm gonna wait a little bit to make sure that they clear before we get going. Sorry, I'll just trying to like figure out the best way to get monitor stuff going. I want to. I would like to show y'all less of that other side, but now that armor's in play. Alright, we gotta leave this for now, I guess. Doing good, thank you. Hope all's on your end as well. Yeah, relatively. We're here. We're living, you know. So yeah, hi everybody. Happy Wednesday. I hope today was restful and productive for y'all. I'm sorry for missing the last two streams. Brain was sort of just not like a bad spot, but I might have got like a little fixated on a couple of other things, or like, well, both that and like being a little bit sleepy, and a couple other things that sort of just came up last Wednesday. Well, not last Wednesday. Last Friday, the game that I wanted to play for Fighting Friday wasn't ready. So I was just like, meh. And then Sunday, I just woke up sleepy, and it's just like, but yeah, I'm sort of back in the saddle now mentally and sort of sorted some things out. Most critically, though, we have, I'm very happy to say that the monitor came in. So now that the monitor is in, I have a dual monitor setup going again. So now it's a lot easier for me to just like have stuff up and look at things and not have to like worry about like accidentally juggling things into the wrong window anymore. Basically, I literally cannot do that unless I like deliberately move stuff on purpose. So this makes my life a lot easier in a lot of ways because it means I can keep more things open. There are things I don't have to like keep jumping in between to like actively edit stuff. Yeah, like I went back because I had to. It's the simplest way to put it. But by virtue of the fact that now you do not have to anymore, life's way easier. And by proxy, right, it is like I literally cannot like put things onto the primary monitor that y'all are seeing now. I cannot do that unless I quite literally like manually drag and drop stuff over to it. And now this means that I can like do things like share like one-off videos or other like silly nonsense with y'all a lot easier. Without having to worry about like, oh, whoops, did I accidentally drag something over here that I wasn't supposed to, etc. Makes my life a lot easier. Great. Yeah. With all that said, today's probably going to be relatively chill because I think, by and large, as far as shootlanzer goes, I've gotten most of my tasks done, so I don't have like a lot of new stuff to do. Insofar as what I can remember, anyway. I'm pretty sure that the majority of my tasks are like accomplished. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have us a good time, and I think it's mostly just gonna be me like looking at waves, making sure the timing is right, and a bunch of other stuff. I might comment some code that I left uncommented previously if I find some of it, but you know. Or, or yeah, two. Okay, I think we should be yeah. So yeah, like now it is like super easy for me to like not put things onto the other monitor, onto the main monitor that don't belong there, because the secondary monitor um, is not plugged into the secondary monitor is not plugged into the capture card, so can't like can't like do it by that. The only way for me to do it is like literally drag stuff from the secondary monitor over to the primary one. That's the only way, pretty much. So yeah, yeah. I really didn't have. I don't have like anything super detailed planned out for shootlanzer, so I'm probably just gonna do a run through real quick, just sort of see where the feel of things is at. If there are any things I want to adjust with like enemy placement or the timing of the waves that I added last week or anything like that. And mostly now it's just like small tweak stuff because like a lot of the what I would consider sort of like the bigger ticket items, right, are things that I do not have any control over in terms of like, hey, where is like thing X, right? Um, hey Shen, how you doing? Hopefully well. And yeah, happy Juneteenth. If you are in the United States and you do not know what Juneteenth is, it is very specifically a Black Texan celebration of when they heard word that slavery was ended. For those of you who are not aware of like United States history, the long and short of it is that from 1861 to 1865, we had a thing called the Civil War, where basically the northern states of the country were like, so yeah, we're done with slavery, and the southern states were like, fuck that, we're seceding. If you hear anybody like say something about something states' rights, they're trying to pull one over on you. The Civil War was about slavery, not states' rights. Yeah, basically, once slavery was ended, not every place that was part of the Confederacy knew immediately. Well, not all, like the people, the phrase that differently. Not all of the slaves knew that. And so with Juneteenth, June 19th, I believe the date was like the year was like 1865 or something. I may not be remembering correctly. It may be a little bit after that. But basically, when specifically Black Texans found out that, hey, yeah, slavery is over. It was June 19th, 1860. I want to say 1860. I could just check instead of trying to like bullshit this out and look like a clown. Yeah, June 19th, 1865. So it turns out that the random history factoids that my brain does in fact like pull together turns out to be these things. So yeah, um, specifically, if anybody is like, but that's the thing to remember in particular. Fun fact, remember, Juneteenth in particular is of importance to Black American Texans. Which people are happy Juneteenth, certainly. But keep in mind that the community that is most directly kind of like impacted by that in terms of like who is it the most important to, it's them. Also, don't be weird with the black people. That's not, but that's kind of goes without saying. But yeah, hi Shan, how you doing? Hopefully well. Good to see you. Let me go get my controller and let us start figuring out what is going on with Shoot Lancer. Because pretty much like I don't want to make a lot of like hard major up changes because I haven't really gotten a chance to like send this to people to have them play test it. So the main reason why I don't want to like go too hard in the paint on changes in terms of like things I'm changing this stream is because right I haven't had the opportunity to have people who don't know how to play this game play it. So like weighing sort of like the what's the word I'm looking for? Weighing the there we go. So yeah, like weighing the it's a little bit hard to sort of like weigh the difficulty of certain things without having had like people who don't play the game play it. So or who haven't played the game play it. So Dawn Trail. Yeah. There were a couple of things with some characters I didn't get to accomplish, but I was reminded by a friend of mine that I really just need to like slow down, and it's fine. So of all the characters that I have, a good couple of them are set up for that. One of like a couple of them will not be, but that's okay. And that is the thing I had to remind myself of. I was not remembering that, and that is a hazard to your wellness. I got a little bit like getting a little obsessive. I'll be honest. So like, so the reminder was good to kind of like. Alright, I gotta push off the. And this is why I wanted to test it, because I wanted to like sit down for a minute and sort of like think through, like, hey, do I need to like adjust a couple other things? That seems about right. I just need to push off the I need to push off the boss summoning time by like another couple of seconds because I don't want the boss to like come out like midway through that. So here, right, we gotta push the spawn time to like maybe 70 or something to kind of like give it a little more space for people to like actually deal with the enemies that are on the screen from the wave just before it. Right? So yeah, that's the thing I have to kind of like sit down and remind myself of, like to kind of like chill out and stop trying to like get another two characters through all of the all of the Endwalker story plus MSQ stuff before Dawn Trail hit. Um, I probably could have done it. I probably could still do it, but I was getting a little too into it. And that was no good. So better that I was like, that I was stopped because, whew. But yeah. So by and large, it looks like the things with shootlanzer that I was most concerned about more or less seem to be about right. I feel like probably I need to adjust the I may need to adjust like the spawn, the actual spacing of some of these spawns because these are all troopers, right? I think I want to put another scout in the middle. Quick load. I'm going to switch this to scout. 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 That comes in the middle of those two. It's one of the patterns, ideally, that I would like to be able to test, right? 18, 19, 20. I think these two are true. Or these two are. That's a scout. So we have a scout here and a scout here. What's that wave? Wave 7 is the real talk regarding Dawn Trail supposed to be relaxing vacation one anyway. Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah. Take it slow and take a bite. One day at a time. So wind your hearts and minds, your worries will disappear. Each tale is painted. I could go look up the actual lyrics because they are like actually live now. Um, Auto Rig Pro. Okay, I should go get that before that goes out, huh? 'Sorry, I saw a thing that says like Blender's Auto Rig Pro is free today. You only get the current version, but apparently it is one of the most popular plugins for Blender. So I'm probably gonna go snatch that at some point before the day is up. Happy Juneteenth. But yeah, mainly there won't be any trauma at all, right? Yeah, supposedly. But yeah, the main thing that I'm mostly trying to avoid with Shoot Lancer right this second is like like over finessing things that we have not had time to like really test out. Kind of want to avoid that. Okay, that one is coming in a little bit later. So 14, 15, and 16 are all kind of in 14, 15, 16 all kind of want to be in like a right? So then cut 4, so that's 1 8. 7, 20, cut actually 720 cut 3 times. Nope. I want this to be like there to the way up the screen. 5, 7. Oh wait, no, just do 7, 720 cut 4 times. Yeah, there we go. Right there. Hey Cat Wizard, what's up? How you doing? Hopefully well. Uh let's see here. got too stoned and fell asleep, but I'm good now. Love to hear it. Let's see. Maybe I shift this one back. I just want no. I think leave it at 43 and see how that comes out. 8, 49, 49, 48. So, right, I wanted. Okay, right. The idea was to have these two. Let's do 720. So let's do 720 cut 4 divided by 3 times 3, and that should put that right there. This one is start coming out at the same time. Do here 720 cut 4, and then that puts it right there. And then these two are coming out at the same time, but a little bit down from each other, which is about what I want, right? Maybe have this one a little bit lower. Oh, sugar. That's what I forgot. I forgot to turn on Mixmup Bot because I'm a clown. Thank you, Stubby. Hold on. Oh no. I forgot to turn on the Mix It Up bot before we launched. Thank you, Stubby, thank you, Stubby. That's why the bot isn't working. Hang on. That shenanigans might happen, I think. I was supposed to open it beforehand. But thank you so much for the resub. If I can get an exclamation point hype in the chat, while I see if I can remember how to get this to work correctly. Because whoops, I forgot to have Mix It Up open beforehand. That's my fault. So hold on a second. I think I can do this without having to restart the whole thing. But yeah, hi Stubby. I think I can do this without having to restart the restart the whole thing. But let me see here. I knew I forgot something. Damn. Let's see. Overlay. I'm gonna test one real quick. Yeah, hi Stubby. Okay, yeah, hold on a second. Let me do separate sub overlay. I don't want to have to restart the sheet. That would bite. Properties. How you doing, Stubby? Hopefully well. Okay. I think. Okay. Looks like I managed to not break that. We don't get the alert sound, but that's fine. I was worried for half a second that refreshing the overlay itself would cause things to not update. It didn't get your resub because it should say you, but it will probably fix itself the next time I launch if I'm not a dingus. But yeah, thank you, Stubby. I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully you're doing well. Okay. Let's test this scene. How this goes. For my part, I'm just also really happy that when I updated this to Godot 4.2, things didn't break hard. Two. Three. good comparing Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise, and I feel like a lot of the comparisons in the discourse I seem to choose out of date. Yeah. My main thing in particular is that because I played way more Rise than I have World. The main thing about World that kind of like made me bounce off of it super hard was that you basically don't, and this is just because of the way that like World kind of like came around anyway. So it's not like a fault of the game necessarily. World is it doesn't feel as good to navigate in that game from my experience with it. Mostly because in World, at least not until you get to like Iceborne, right? You don't have ways of navigating the environment very quickly. And the thing that I really liked about Rise almost immediately was like wire bugs and Palamute. Hop on your Palamute, like move quickly. Like hunting was a lot quicker and faster in a lot of aspects. World, I feel like World was doing a lot of stuff where what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, World sort of like slowed down the whole process of, which feels more involved, which is great if you like enjoy like sort of like slower hunting sort of pace of things, right? World is really great for that. Rise is a lot quicker and feels a lot more like I can do quick move zoomy stuff very, very like immediately, right? And I like that a lot better as a personal thing, right? This is not me saying that one design is inherently better than the other. It's just that I happen to like the whole thing about like, yeah, this moves like this moves a lot quicker and so on and so forth, right? Yeah, that's my main thing, right? Yeah. I guess what else do you mean aside from that might be like different? Comparing the two side by side, Rise isn't actually much faster. Yeah. I know you may not mean like a movement speed thing. I'm not talking necessarily about like a movement speed per se. The impression is different because mobility is more accessible in Rise. Is the impression that I am trying to convey when I say that. Like it may not even necessarily be that like in terms of like literal speed, how long hunts take. Oh, okay. Yeah. My main feeling, right, is that the reason why that is primarily, or the reason why it doesn't feel, let me phrase this, despite the fact that people say that hunts feel fast, well, I'll say maybe. The reason why I say hunts feel faster is mostly because at least unless they have changed things in World significantly from when I played, my main thing is that with Rise, it sort of feels like it cuts it feels like it sort of like cuts the the part of it is traversal, and the other part of it is that as I recall it anyway, tracking monsters in World is a lot more of a involved process than it is in Rise. So the extra steps make it feel, to some people, or even me in this case, the extra steps that were involved in tracking and navigating the world in Rise, it feels like a lot of those difficulties are like handled a lot better in World. I'm getting my words backwards because I'm not thinking correctly. What I'm trying to say, let me slow down because my brain is going like a mile away. With World, specific things like needing to check monster tracks or like monster leavings and things like that make the hunt feel slower than it is. With Rise, it's very much you can just track the monster automatically, point yourself in the direction of where you need to go and go, right? So I feel like probably the reason why the hunts are probably about the same length is that the encounter design is not necessarily radically different, but the encounter design is probably set up in a way that the encounter design is probably set up in such a way that it encourages that it sort of evens it out, is the thing I'm trying to say. Godot change. Right. The monsters in Rise are tankier. It's much easier to accidentally kill your mark and roll if you're going. Yeah. So then, right. So then, from that perspective, it is closer to the thing that I was thinking, where it's like, yeah, yeah, and so that, yeah, so then that's the I need that to not go to gray. Project settings. Flashes that. On that note, I said I'd like to play. Yeah, when possible. Mm-hmm. Entirely fair, to be honest. Oh, I should fix this probably. Hydration, not dehydration? Alright, a little bit. So that is a thing I can fix, I guess. Hold on a second. I need to make an adjustment. sit down and remember how to actually. Okay, so we don't have that. Which we need. I did see the hydrate, not hydrate. I just need to like finish this. Or should I do this in the player or in the enemy script? This might be better done in like an enemy script, I think. Because right, enemies can have any number of names. Hold on. Oh, it's not an override. Okay, I'm being silly. So let me go. I'm going to do it from over here in the enemies in the enemy script. Here, what we're going to do is public enemy. Reduce the player's health first, then take max damage. And we want. But yeah, no, that also makes sense. Like playing Monster Hunter as like non-lethally as you can. Uh, like, on area entered to go. this. I just need to check 2 things before I go do that. So stage 1 boss. Yeah, that's what I thought. So we're going to vector. We just need to check the collision. Slide. Player and player bullets. That's good. Base enemy. Slide with player and player bullets. That's good. Okay. I'm gonna go get up and go do the hydrate thing because Amari was asking about that. So I'm gonna go do that. Capcom didn't seem to be on a really anti-mod kick. I saw a mod let me capture it. Elder Dragons and the other. Yeah. Uh-huh. Entirely fair. Okay. Let me go get hydrate and probably something to go snack on because now Tom is doing the rumble. Ow, 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 ow. Stretched. Stretched a little too hard. Okay, good. The connection looks like it's propagated through. So let's test it. Yes, if you absolutely want to, you can in fact literally just ram into enemies, get rid of them. Probably not the boss though. That was something that I should have like fixed a while ago, and I just hadn't figured out how to fix it until basically just now. good. Things I can add are bug fix. Didn't. Okay. That, yeah, that's closer to how I would like things. Boss spawns, moving the boss spawn around and a bunch of other stuff like that. I forgot to post that I was going live in one other spot. Let me go do that real quick before I forget again. Haha. Again, the nice thing about like actually having a multiple monitor setup is that I can now go ahead and go do that, right? Without having to like switch screens and like stop everything all at once. Like very helpful. But yeah, yeah, my main thing is Monster Hunter. Since we were talking about that, right? Because Monster Hunter in particular, right? With Monster Hunter, right? For me, the thing that I'm hoping for Wilds is that they keep a lot of the movement stuff from Rise, because I feel like what helps sell Rise and what makes it really well, what makes it like work, right? Of course, this now means that I have to also fight my own high distractibility, but the trade-offs are worth it. But yeah, the thing about Monster Hunter Rise that I like, that I really hope that Wilds keeps, things like, and it looks like so far things that they are keeping, being able to like ride a creature that makes your actual movement around the map faster. Yes, that's good. I like that. I enjoy that. That is like very good, right? A major thing that I know Wilds is doing that's different from World entirely is and this one is like really, really sick, right? You can now carry another weapon on your riding animal in addition to the one that you have as your primary, right? And basically, right? This means that if you're like, oh yeah, I need to switch for whatever reason, right? Very easily, you just take the two weapons that you want, your primary and your secondary, go out riding, and then literally switch on the fly without having to like stop, go back to the tent, do all that other stuff. So that's cool. And that to me speaks very well to potential other like flexibility in terms of like the way that it works, right? Yeah, it means the horde never leaves for me. Yeah, I could quite literally just run around with insect glaive and longsword, or insect glaive and greatsword, and yeah. I am quite excited about this, is the simplest way to put it. So yeah, my hope is that yeah, my hope is largely that with whatever happens else with Wild, that they keep drawing on some of the stuff that they picked up in um, that they sort of kept up on in World. That for me is kind of like the important part, right? The two things I will do though is that I will put back a gray. I'll put back a gray background. I'll put back a gray background at least around this side, because not having one is a little scary. So add child node, need a canvas layer. So this one is layer 2. Let me double check to see. It's supposed to be higher. Lower values are drawn below higher values. So we're just gonna put like, yeah, it's like a 1. Now we're gonna add child node. Color rect. All we have to do with the color rect is take the color rect, fill this whole thing. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Yeah. Switch skills remaining in hats. Damn it. All right. When the ads are done, I'll catch up with the thing that I meant to do, because like yeah, there we go. That's the trick to figuring. That's the trick to figuring it. Grab this. Oh, there we go. Let's paste that. And test this real quick. And once that's over, once ads are over, we'll talk about the thing. bad expansion. Right. So we was talking about like the switch skills, or rather the ability to modify weapon skill. Yeah. I feel like leaving switch skills out of the conversation now with Monster Hunter for Wilds. I do not think that would be a good move on Capcom's part. Switch skills are very, very good at player expression. Some people sort of consider it to be like a buzzword, kind of, right? Like, people sort of consider it to be a buzzword. You feel what I mean? And a lot of it is that, like, oh yeah, like, you know, it's a buzzword. You know, people talk about that kind of thing all the time, and it's like over talked about, right? As far as like, well, not over talked about, or rather, like, people will say a lot about player expression, and people who get a little bit too fixated on the idea and what that actually sort of like means for what players pick up and learn in a game. They feel sometimes what I'm gonna hop back to last week's discussion. The reason why I'm like talking about it in this frame is because player expression, or the lack thereof, is one of the major things that people kind of like get in their shit about with Final Fantasy XIV and the way that classes and jobs currently work in that game. One of the big things that a lot of people who get like pardon me for a second, the sneeze caught up with me a little. But yeah, my main thing primarily is that the reason why I'm very like what you would consider like cagey about how I sort of talk about it in this context is because like a lot of people who are super like who have a tendency to armchair game dev, this is what I'm looking for. People who have a tendency to like armchair game dev will be the sort of people who look at the context behind, right, why a certain game may appear to flatten out certain things about like player expression and get really, really, really obnoxious about it. Case in point, for example, being people who like are really, really invested in letting you know that Final Fantasy XIV is like flattening out that sort of thing. Hi Vallejo, how you doing? Hopefully well. That like by making jobs simpler, you're flattening out player expression and blah 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 blah, right? So in those terms, I'm sometimes hesitant to talk about it. But for Monster Hunter, where I feel like the reason that's a little different is because to a certain degree, Monster Hunter kind of prides itself on from those levers that I was talking about last week, right? Much better now that my AC works for the first time in a month. All right.
Easy operation.
I hope that came through because I have no idea if the audio overlay works correctly. But yeah, we're doing good. Okay, good, it did. Excellent. But yeah, with Monster Hunter, and the reason why I feel like with Monster Hunter, this is very critically important, is that with Monster Hunter, the main thing is that Monster Hunter in particular deliberately promotes the idea of being flexible and adaptable to a certain degree, right? Like, or let me phrase that differently. Monster Hunter Monster Hunter sort of does this thing where, in a general sense, at the baseline level, as you get more and more resources, the game does sort of look at you like, hey, it's a good idea for you to like build out some flexibility into like your kit in terms of like the equipment that you have on hand, so that if you're going out to hunt a specific monster, right? If you're going out to go hunt a specific monster or something, to that particular direction, hey, you should have gear set up, or like in the case of like Rise, for example, yeah, make sure that you configure your jewels correctly and blah 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 XYZ, right? So in a very broad way, and also you can do like a lot of like just really wild and silly ass builds if you really want to, and Monster Hunter make it work. So for me in particular, the way that I look at it is that Monster Hunter, by necessity, kind of like encourages flexibility, and by encouraging flexibility, you also have more room for player expression. And as a result of that, having switch skills is a good thing, because it lets people sort of like decide the terms on which they want to set up their builds, and it lets people experiment more with that. Like, hey Vinka, how you doing? It lets you experiment more with what combination of switch skills, decorations, and all that other stuff kind of comes together in Rise to like really like it's sort of it comes together in a way that makes it such that being able to have different switch skills, and even more critically, I would say, it's okay I made music. I'm okay I made music today. Nice. But yeah, being able to, especially with once they added the ability to swap skill scrolls, so you could switch between two different skill layouts while hunting in Rise, it's really good, right? Because I'm collabing with a rapper now. Ooh, baller. Our switch skills go. I really hated dual blades until I unlocked Demon Flight, and then the whole weapon class anymore. Yeah, like for me in particular, right? I have for Insect Glaive, right? The way that I set up my switch skills for Insect Glaive is that one scroll is literally for just quickly accumulating, all my colors for Insect Glaive, like very, very quickly. Just go like pop, 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 suck it all up, and I'm good. And then the other one is for, okay, no, I'm ready. I'm loaded up for bear. I'm ready to do damage because I've got all my Insect Glaive buffs up, and I want to like maximize how many of them I can put out before, you know, we're done. But yeah, I hope the track comes out really good though, Vinka. That's exciting. Music. Take a pin. I gotta go deal with a thing later, because that reminded me of a thing. Thank you for reminding me of that, actually, Vinka. That's a I have to figure that out later. So. But yeah, for me in particular, right, when I sit and I think about it, or the way that, if you want to discuss player expression in a way that doesn't turn into like a slap fight like it does when you try to discuss that with like Final Fantasy 14 players who are like, oh yeah, well, I'm making all the classes easier, you're like removing player expression or whatever, right? Or with fighting games, this happens too, right? Where an argument that a lot of people will make is that if you have this is another thing that happens a lot, right? Like if you do a thing wherein you have removed a lot of what a lot of people sort of perceive as like the complex parts of fighting games, that you are like lowering player expression and that every person kind of like plays the game the same way, right? This is an accusation that you saw leveled at Street Fighter V. Not entirely without cause, right? But with Street Fighter V, it was a thing where sort of two things were happening at once. With Street Fighter V, a lot of what happened was that a lot of player kits, a lot of character kits rather, got a lot of their functionality in terms of like what cool shit can you do. A lot of characters in Street Fighter V had a lot of that loaded into their V-triggers, right? And the reason why that's a problem is because it functionally makes it so that like your character doesn't get to do cool shit until you got V-trigger going. And getting V-trigger going meant usually you had to like take a bunch of damage or use a V-skill a lot if your V-skill was the kind that gave you enough meter to do V-trigger stuff, right? And so that's why it's like, right, a lot of the things that you do in Street Fighter V are specifically around like leveraging hyper-specific parts of your kit in ways that sort of help you compensate for the fact that like you don't have much all your moveset until such and such time. Street Fighter 6 has fixed this problem by adding moves back in that were missing or otherwise restricted in certain aspects. But then it has also gone out of its way to, for fighting games in particular, right? One of the ways that you sort of open up player expression a lot more is by giving people stronger system mechanics. That's what I was looking for. Ideally, right, in a fighting game, if a fighting game has very strong, very distinct system mechanics, both offensively and defensively, right? You begin, depending on the character, you begin to see a lot more leverage of like one or the other in terms of like certain things, right? So with Street Fighter 6, a sort of like common complaint I will say that you sort of hear from people who feel very strongly about how the meta of Street Fighter 6 kind of evolved in the first year. A lot of people will be very strident in saying that, yeah, because Drive Rush and Drive Rush Cancel is so good, right? Because like Drive Rush and Drive Rush Cancel is so strong, one of the things that like people who really don't like Street Fighter 6 complain about a lot is the idea that like if a character has a really long or really like a really long reaching crouching medium kick that also happens to be like cancelable, then you can like basically fish for that, Drive Rush Cancel, and then do whatever, right? And Capcom has like adjusted it like a little bit since the release, right? They've adjusted it a little bit since the release to make that not immediately as viable. But a lot of people were crying like, oh no, like, you know, there's no like player expression is reduced now, right? Like, oh, you don't get to like characters are all fishing for like Drive Rush 2MK, Drive Rush 2MK, which is not exactly the case, right? like some characters for whom that doesn't work at all. Like Lily, Lily's crouching medium kick is really stubby. No pun intended. Right. And so for her, she has to do a lot of fishing with like other normals and things like that. And instead, she tends to use Drive Rush either from her heavier normals or from certain knockdowns. She might use like a Drive Rush in neutral to kind of like get in and like sort of do other stuff, right? And other characters also leverage raw Drive Rushes to a certain extent for that kind of thing, right? Perhaps I am a couching medium kick, perhaps so. So yeah, right? In particular, and that's the thing about Street Fighter 6 that's going to be interesting, or that is interesting, right? Like, how do characters sort of interact with the drive system being as strong as it is? Here's a critical point to that, right? With the new changes in Season 2, one of them being that you can use a drive reversal while you're getting up from the ground, right? Now, characters have an additional option for like wake up reversal if they don't have an overdrive DP, for example. So if they don't have anything like Cammy's overdrive cannon spike or whatever, then it's like, all right, either I spend a super or I just hold the mix, right? But and this is the big but, right? But now that you have the ability to be like, okay, no, actually, I would prefer to not use super meter. I would rather just do a drive reversal. Granted, drive reversals can still be baited, right? But they're also a little bit harder to punish now because drive reversals are a little more safe on block than they used to be. Which means that, like, you, as the defender, right? Now, either you have an option for reversals where you didn't have one before, or if you're like Cammy, you have multiple options, right? If you're like, I would rather take the slightly safer gamble in terms of like getting people off my ass on when I'm waking up, drive reversal instead of doing overdrive DP. If you really, really, really want to call somebody out, right? Overdrive DP or like wake up super art 1. If you think that you're in a situation where you can like get up and do a reversal and catch somebody pressing a button, right? And that's why I'm like strong system mechanics for fighting games are the ways that you like get player expression to sort of be up. And it's something very similar with, to go back to the Monster Hunter point now, switch skills are like that from Monster Hunter. To go back to the Monster Hunter point, right? Switch skills and being able to swap skill scrolls is basically building up system mechanics for Monster Hunter. And I think it would be remiss of them in Wilds for Capcom to like not carry that forward. Because, right, again, for player expression, if that's the thing that you're like worried about, it comes down to options. The more options that you give a player, right? Generally speaking, the more options you give a player, the more opportunities there are, right, for player expressiveness to like be a bigger and better thing. And that, I think, is like very critical, right? That's important, at least in my eyes, right? And I think it would be remiss of Capcom to not take advantage of that for Monster Hunter Wilds, especially given that they have already sort of made that overture with the you can carry 2 weapons on a hunt, and switch between them seamlessly thing, right? Do that, you have switch skills on top of that, then it's like, yeah, you have a really big amount of options, I think. And I think it'd be cool to have that. I don't know if they will do that. They may think that here's the other flip side of that, right? Unfortunately, is that, and I was sort of alluding to this when we were talking about Final Fantasy XIV design and encounter design and stuff like that last week, is that if you happen to like crank up, this is the thing I was talking about. The two levers again, right? You have the levers of the players, of the complexity of the player's kit, like the tools that they can use and things like that, and the complexity of the encounter design. If encounters are really complex and so are player kits, then the friction that you get, and you want a little bit of friction, like I said last week, but the balancing act is, I should do it like this. So this is the lever for encounter design. This is the lever for, I don't think it, yeah, probably not, because like, right, because Rise was initially a Switch game, I think. I could be horribly misremembering this. I think the reason why they were called Switch skills is because they were making a joke about it being on the Nintendo Switch. I'm pretty sure. But putting that to one side for like a second, right? Switch exclusive until PC port. Yeah, that's probably why they call it Switch skills, and probably why you have a red scroll and a blue scroll, because those are the default colors for a Joy-Con. Why don't I just not fucking realize that? Jesus Christ. God, call me a bunch of nerds. Fucking hell. Anyway, right. Levers. So you have player kit over here. You have player kit over here as one lever. So you pull the lever down, the kit becomes less complex. Up, it becomes more complex. Over here, you have encounter design, right? Pull it down, encounters are generally less complex. Pull it up, encounters are generally more complex. And what I mean by encounters being more or less complex is things like how many like status buffs or debuffs is like the enemy putting in, right? Or how aggressive are their attack patterns, all that kind of stuff, right? How many area of effect attacks do they have versus like whatever, that kind of stuff, right? So it may be that like being able to like swap weapon skills on the fly with whatever system they choose to do, maybe they look at it and go, well, if we do that on top of the, so let me put it like this. From my perspective, right now, with Monster Hunter Wilds actively letting you carry two weapons seamlessly into a fight and switch between them relatively easily, right? That takes your like player toolkit and cranks it up a bit. Because now, right, at the very least, assuming that no skill editing a la Switch skills or whatever makes it back into the game, assuming that doesn't happen, and you only have like, they force you to use whatever set of skills on that weapon. You can't edit them or otherwise customize those skills, but you can carry two weapons with you into battle. That on its own cranks up player toolkit complexity a little bit, because now, right, you have two different weapons that you can swap between on the fly relatively quickly. If they add in the ability to also do switch skills or whatever equivalent on top of that, that cranks the player toolkit stuff up more, right? Where it's like, okay, now you have, because if I remember correctly, right, with the use of a skill scroll, I believe they allowed you to change two skills per skill scroll, I think, if I remember correctly. So you can have one skill scroll with two skills on it, switch to another one, and it would have a different set of two, right? And every weapon has, I can't do math. I cannot do math. Each scroll has it, yeah. How many skills were on each scroll is the part I'm talking about. Some weapons had up to 5 switch skills. Okay, right. So I can't do the math right now because I'm going to fuck it up if I try it. But basically speaking, right? Player toolkit. Hot swap between weapons in battle. Customize your weapons with switch skills, even if you can't switch them in the middle of battle. Customize your weapons with switch skills that you can switch in the middle of battle. You see how that complexity now for the player toolkit is like shot way up? It doesn't necessarily mean, right? It does not necessarily mean that, yeah, like the complexity basically becomes exponential, effectively speaking. Because then it becomes a question of, for you, the player, right? How am I going to configure my switch skills and the scrolls and which two weapons that am I taking in? What weapon type is it for this particular hunt? Blah, blah, blah. Thankfully, right, your skill scrolls don't have to be configured for every weapon in terms of like, oh, I have an iron weapon and I'm going to switch to like a steel weapon. The switch skills aren't different between those two as long as you're in the same category. So an iron longsword and a steel longsword have the same switch skills. You don't have to like worry about that. But it doesn't really change the fact that like if Monster Hunter Wilds was to be like, hey, right, so you can have two weapons that you carry on the field and you can customize your switch skills and you can switch between which switch skills you have like set up, right? Like that puts the complexity of the player toolkit like up here. And if the encounter design is up here, this is not necessarily to mean that like the encounter design being hard and the skills being complex is a bad thing. None of this is like qualitative in terms of like this is good or this is bad. It's just a question of what friction does this now create between these two elements, right? And that's the interesting part that I think is going to be here. For my part, I would love to see switch skills come back or something or whatever equivalent for Monster Hunter Wilds, the new one. I want to see that. I would also like to even have like the ability to swap those the way that you could with skill scrolls in Rise. I would like that. I think that especially for the type of game that Monster Hunter generally is, where it sort of like rewards being able or choosing to get down deep in like the shenanigans, right? By my eyes and in my point of view, right? I feel like that is a really, really strong way to build like a good solid sort of evolution and of how things are coming over from Rise to Wilds. That's me, personally. I guess you could say in terms of like how right. And it's the thing, right? This is the thing for me in particular, right? The way that I look at it is that do not have to have a game that has really high, right, toolkit complexity in order to make it compelling, right? So I'm going to give you all an example. Let's do a thing quick that I think would be helpful here. Sorry, because now we're getting like funny ads on the side. Give me a sec. With Ikaruga, right? The whole point with Ikaruga is basically that I'm not going to explain the chain status part because I don't remember how that works. But the main mechanic of this game is very straightforward, right? Let me use this in case like we get like audio nonsense to happen. Your ship can switch between two polarities, right? Your weapons deal more damage to to enemies of the opposite color, right? So if you're and you're immune to exactly. You're immune to damage that's the same color of your ship, and you do more damage. I think the way that works anyway is that you do more damage to enemies that are the opposite color of your ship. If I remember correctly. Right? And aside from that and like the chain shoot and like the chain shot mechanic, and like the chain mechanic where you're like getting rid of enemies in a row, I forget the exact way that it works. Those are the only mechanics of Ikaruga. That's it. Like those are the only mechanics of the game. Straight up. Like, okay, shoot things of like basically, right? Make sure that your shield is the same color of bullets that you are trying to absorb, and then for bullets of the opposite color, you have to avoid them. That's pretty much it, right? But Ikaruga, right? So in terms of like the player toolkit part, Ikaruga is like really like down here, right? Like Ikaruga does not do anything super complicated. Not really. But by comparison, you'll notice that generally speaking, right, the encounter design is where you start to get a lot of that complexity instead, right? So that's why I was like, this is not a qualitative measure. When I talk about something having like very small player toolkits or very large player toolkits, very simple, or very simple encounter design versus like very complex encounter design, right? That's why I'm like, these are not qualitative. They are sort of closer to quantitative, where it's just like it's about how much of it there is one way or the other, and it is not so much like a quality thing, where it's like, oh yeah, if your game has like low, if your game has like low encounter complexity and like low player toolkits, and it's a bad game. It's not. It's not that sort of thing, right? That's not the discussion. It's not the conversation that we're really having here. It's just a okay, right? Relative to each other, what are the levers here? How are they sort of set up, and what knock-on effects do they have? What are the implications for people that are playing the game? That's sort of the way that I talk about. That's what I mean talk about when I talk about it like that, right? Pleasantly Twisted is Pleasantly Twisted right now is doing a playthrough of Vagrant Story, and Vagrant Story is the type of game that, based on what I know about it, I would say that like the player toolkit is relatively relatively expansive in the sense that like the rules for how weapon leveling works and all that other stuff. Some of it is just shit they don't explain to you. Some of it is also just like relatively esoteric in certain other aspects, right? But it is very, very. It's a very broad. Yeah, exactly. A lot of really good games with simple player. Exactly, right? Yeah, like you don't. Again, that's why it's like qualitative. It's not. Rather, it's not qualitative. It is quantitative. Like for example, Space Invaders. Space Invaders is as simple as you can get with either of those. So I know that technically speaking, now we're like usually when we talk about this particular framework, it's mostly only useful for like action games or action-esque games because that's where you have encounters, so to speak. But like Space Invaders is like a prime example of this, right? Space Invaders, literally all you can do is you can move left, you can move right, shoot, and you've got funny little barriers that you can shoot through as you're shooting, and that's about it. The enemies move in a very specific pattern, and They get faster as you get rid of them, right? And I think the enemies themselves also shoot. My brain is like having a fart moment right now. And that's literally it. Space Invaders made Taito a lot of money back in the day. People loved that, right? So I bring all that up. And I say all of this simply because I kind of wanted to to help demonstrate Stubby's point. Yeah, exactly. And even that, like Stubby has pointed out, if you know your game history, you know that with Space Invaders, the enemy speeding up was what we call emergent gameplay, in the sense that literally, well, not emergent in the way that it's normally, but it was one of those things where an unintentional effect is what we'll call it, because getting rid of enemies meant that, like Stubby said, right? Because there's less processing power needed as you got rid of enemies, it freed up the computer to make them move faster. It's not on purpose, but it wound up creating a sort of like level of challenge that a lot of people like vibed with. Super, super tough. Right? Like people like that. They're like, oh yeah, wow, this is like real good. They're like, wow, this is really good. Right? And so, even though it was entirely unintentional, yeah, like it went wild. People love that, right? So, to bring it back to the main point, Space Invaders, right? Player toolkit, small. Encounter design, simple. Game, still really popular, right? Like, so when I say that they are quantitative and not qualitative, that's the kind of thing that I mean. Where, to Stubby's point, you can have, right? You can have very low amounts of either and still come out with a very compelling game, because it's about the friction between those two, regardless of what proportion they're at to each other. It's always about the friction of those two things, and whether or not that friction, that intersection between the two of them, is too tough or not. Because you want a little bit of it. So here's the thing, right? Like, when you are designing a game, right? I'll go back to like talking about shootlanzer, and talk about some of the design ethos behind it, right? So like with shootlanzer, the whole thing is that there has to be a very delicate balance between how fast Leona moves, as well as like spin speed, right? And like spin duration, because when Leona had a shorter spin duration and slower movement speed, that meant that you had to be a lot more precise with like when you were going to spin. Be a lot more precise with when you were going to spin and all that, because spinning is basically like your only guaranteed method of like case in point. So, right, spinning. If Leona's spin was a little bit less invulnerable, or if it took a little more time for the spin timer to refill, right? If either of those two were the situation, right? If either Leona's spin timer took if Leona's spin timer was either a little bit longer, or if Leona's spin invulnerability was a little lower, right? That'd be one thing with the movement speed that she has. It just means that it's like, okay, right, you have to really save the spin for like super like tight pinch moments, because there's no guarantee that when you spin, it will come back at the time that you need it, right? If Leona is also moving slowly on top of that, that makes that even more important. But then it becomes a question of, is this too friction, right? Because having to make a meaningful decision between, right, do I just want to move out of the way of these shots and hold my spin for later? Or do I want to just spin now, blitz these down, and then not have to worry about it? And then be willing to contend that I don't know what else might come down the pipe, right? That friction, that's interesting. That is interesting friction, right? And there is nothing wrong with putting players in a position where they have to be like, oh, right, oh, damn, I now have to make a decision about this one way or the other, right? Like, that is okay. There is nothing wrong with it. And ideally, it is that type of friction that you want. You want players to have to, like, feel the tension between that sort of thing. Where you have to worry about like too much friction, right? To sort of like talk about the point that I was getting at is that let me come back over here. See why the pause menu's backdrop is still out of line. That annoys me so much. Oh, right. Wrong thing. But yeah, so you want a little bit of friction, right? Like having friction, even if it's just a little bit of it. Okay, cool. So that just does that all the time. Okay, so it's just literally. Oh, okay. Love that. So it's just literally something else that is off in terms of like just the way that the damn thing fits on the screen. Node, all node itself should already be expanded out. Transparent BT should also just follow. So yeah, like it's still not gonna work correctly because okay, fine. We can do this. We can do this way. I don't mind. You want to be difficult? We can be difficult. I don't mind being difficult. We can do that. We can do that. We can absolutely do that if you're gonna make my life pain in the neck, we can do that. I don't mind. Don't know why I got to do it this way, but if this is the way we got to do it, then okay, we can do that. So yeah, to go back to the thing I was saying before. So yeah, shootlanzer's friction is largely very deliberately in the sort of in the way that there is a very deliberate sort of like push and pull between hi L6 heroes. Hi L6, welcome on in. Glad to have you. How you doing today? Hopefully well. Um yeah, the main thing about doing good. Which project you working on? This is Shootlanzer. It is a side-scrolling shoot 'em up that I am working on with the game dev co-op that I helped found. Um, we make video games basically. This is like our first major project like together. If you want to know more about us, you can head over to munity.games. We have a Patreon, and if you want to like actually play the, it is not bleeding edge current version of the prototype, but if you want to play the most recently updated version of the prototype, is it's over there. Hope it would be successful. Yeah, we're hoping so. This is like, um, we are like out looking for funding and things like that, and sort of just trying to take it out to like play tests like every month or so. People generally like it, and so a lot of what I'm doing now is mostly just like a lot of like tuning of stuff, like a lot of like little adjustments here and little adjustments there. Um, so it's like not in terms of like how it's going, but more like the process is the process. I guess is what I'm trying to actually say. People have been It annoys me that I have to do this like over correction. How long you as an independent game developer, I would say that at least, oh goodness, now I have to really think about it. Professionally, since 2017 is what I would say. Because I released my my actual first commercial game in like 2018, I think. But I started like properly working on it in 2017. It had like a year and a half development. Um, so professionally, since 2017, just in general, like how long I've been making games, like at all period, I would wager at least from middle school on up. Started with like RPG Maker 2003, eventually moved over to Unity. Um, Much later, anyway. In between that, I also like had a hand in like using a lot of like Mugen. Um, when I was in high school, going into like undergrad and like a little bit with grad school, right? Um, yeah, but yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah. So yeah, professionally, it's been a lot. It hasn't been as long as I've been doing it as like a hobbyist is what you would say, I guess. But yeah, for like a hot minute. So mostly in terms of like what I sort of consider like my expertise genres, mostly like action games, fighting games. I would in an ideal world say RPGs, but the main thing with RPGs is that RPGs are really really hard to make. To be entirely clear about that, RPG Maker is really good for helping to keep some of the hang on, lost my chain of thought for a second. Somebody asked me something and I got distracted. Um, right. Um, right. My genres of expertise. And I was saying that RPGs, right? RPGs, even with RPG Maker, kind of like doing a lot of like the heavy lift for you in certain aspects, right? Let me be clear. RPG Maker is a very good program for making RPGs in the sense that it like makes it makes it so that you don't have to worry about things like programming and inventory. I can tell you from personal experience, programming and programming and inventory is one of the most painful things that you can do as a programmer, and it is not fun if you are not into the types of structures that you need to um, make programming work. Sorry, not programming, to make inventories work. Um, Basically speaking, you have to do a lot of work with inventories to make sure that you can like, if you want stackable items, you have to make sure that you can count stacks correctly. Make sure that you're able to like if weapons that are equipable, who are they equipped to, right? How do you make sure that you can't like accidentally swap equips for a weapon that is already equipped when you don't want to equip it, or throw away a weapon that's equipped? And there's a lot of like all that kind of like fail safe and use case stuff. That's a pain in the ass. An RPG Maker handles a lot of that for you. But the things that are then left to you are, you have to think about map design, you have to think about encounter balance, you have to think about encounter design, etc., etc., etc. And admittedly, one of the things that RPG Maker is not very good at doing is and part of this is just sort of like just the nature of the beast in terms of like, well, they can't program for every single system that exists, right? But there's a lot of functionality in RPG Maker that usually only tends to roll up when people make plugins for it. And on the one hand, it's a thing where like, I get it. You can't cover every single type of like RPG design or RPG type in RPG Maker, right? And so I get that, but it's also one of those things where like you have to like spend a lot of time doing like, shoot, ad started. So ads are running. So I'm gonna go to the AFK screen. I'm gonna come back and finish my thought about RPG Maker stuff. Go to the AFK screen, go run around, get a couple things sorted out, and then you're good to go. So I will be right back. Enjoy the comedy stylings of my AFK screen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and action. Henshin!
The jump to the sky turns to a rider kick.
There's only one person who can stop, and that's me. Hey everybody, my name is Sean. They call me either that or SJ. As I say on my own channel, make games, I play games. Games make you, basically. Did you really think that I was going to let you hit me with that? No. Guess what? I'm still alive, motherfucker. Going too fast is no good. Shut the fuck up. What else you got? I have to hit button. Button hit good. This no count, no good, self-absorbed. Giving free turns goes against my professional ethics. I saved your ass! Yo, the nerve of this motherfucker. The absolute gall. The complete stinkiness. Do you see these motherfuckers? They stole all my shit! Fuck out of here. Fuck you. I don't give a fuck now. Stank ass, punk ass, smelly ass motherfucker. Yo! Not with the deep cut. My brain is full of eels. Anyway, so Fuck. We should just play this fucking video game. Damn it. That's not fair. No, that's fighting dirty. You can't do that. Just because it's correct doesn't mean it's right. Just for that, I'll teach y'all to talk to me about the consequences of my own actions. And now, this poll that I'm not going to look at the results of yet, I'm lying, I'm going to look right now. Jesus fuck! Why are y'all like this? What was the reason? This is all according to my calculations. We will probably be fine. God damn it. Can somebody clip that? Going too fast is no good. You facetious motherfuckers. You really are gonna stand up in front of God and everybody. Oh my fucking God. No. No. I can't fucking stand you. How dare you? How very dare you? You right, but shut up. Give me a church. I told y'all I was gonna get a church, and I got a church. Apris above be praised. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. And peanut butter. Praise be to Lord RN Jesus. For in our time of need, he has provided. Can I get a blessings to RN Jesus in the chat? I have to behave. I have to behave. I have to behave. I have to behave. You know what? I'm just gonna do this.
What kind of just nonsense did you just? What in the hell do you mean? You put me on your whole motherfucking screen?
They're all gonna die. Somebody clip that. Oh no. Not again. Y'all do what I think y'all did? Y'all can't bully me like this. Y'all got me all kinds of twists turned up right now. I don't know what the... I applaud you, but also, god fucking damn it, I would just be like, fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I should be fine. Fuck all of you. No! 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 That's not how this works. I am the danger. Oh yeah! I'll respond to that, but fuck! That's shit! Fuck! That's all I have to say in response, you know? If you are into fighting games, JRPGs, game design talk, and all that other kind of stuff, please feel free to follow me over at twitch.tv/SJH Says Games. I can't fucking stand y'all. I can't. Y'all are the absolute fucking worst. I love this fucking community so much. Y'all are just the best. You know that? All of y'all. All of y'all in here. I appreciate y'all so much. You got the straight mom seal of approval. Also because I'm handsome. Good job. Oh, whoops, forgot to turn off the light back there. To answer your question, Alisix, I appreciate you asking, but right now, no, not looking for collaborators. Appreciate you asking, but no. Right now, we are not looking for anybody in, for... Not right now. We pretty much have the team more or less set. We have the team more or less set, and generally speaking, like collaboration, like any other like people that we're bringing on is like a team thing. And at the moment, nope, don't. We don't necessarily have that. It's in the modeling. All right, that's all. All right. Yeah. The only thing I can say for sure is that I am sorry that it did not get to you even earlier. Part of the thing that had my brain like eaten the last 2 weeks was also not cooperating with getting me out to like send things out correctly or send things out at the time that I wanted them. So that is my primary. How did he? I have been told by several people that I have a talent for just picking out really good birthday cards. I can only really tell you truthfully that like I don't know. I trusted my force. That's all I can really say. Because like 100%, right? Like I just went to Target, I was looking at the cards, and I'm like, this one seems nice. And it wasn't until I was writing it up that I went, oh, actually, this is incredibly appropriate, huh? And I was just like, huh, wonder how that happened. Hush you. That's not even the only thing you know about. I love it and I appreciate it. I also don't know if like pension is intentional. I'm putting it somewhere safe. Goddamn ether bullshit. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I can literally only tell you that like literally, I don't know. I just trusted my force. I was just like, this card looks like it would fit, and so I took it. And then it turned out to fit. Straight up. I just like I said, I trust my force, right? That's pretty much it. And that's kind of how that happened. But I'm glad that you like the card. The luck hopefully the other thing also like, you know, fits accordingly and all that other stuff. It fit perfectly. Oh, right. I love it. All right. Right, so the RPG Maker thing, I was talking about that stopped because break happened. Right. So with RPG Maker, right? The main thing is that while it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, you still have to kind of like negotiate things like encounter design, map design, right? Balancing items, weapons, and all this other stuff, right? And that too is also game design, right? Also, happy Juneteenth. Thank you. Appreciate. But yeah, I forgot the main point of what I was talking about with the RPG Maker stuff now, and I'm kind of sad because the ad break broke my concentration. But you know, capitalism, right? The main thing mostly is just that, right? Friction. I'll go back to the friction conversation because that's the thing I was talking about before. The main thing, and that's sort of like the balancing act that in an ideal world, I sort of have to keep. Well, I sort of have to keep with shootlanzer, mostly because like aside from being the programmer, right, I'm also like the design lead. So what that really means, functionally speaking, is that like aside from like me being responsible for things like enemy behavior pattern, not just programming the enemy behavior patterns, but like actually sitting down and sort of like plotting out, right, where do these spawn? Why? What are the rules for how these things spawn and why? Not just programmatically, but thinking about them in terms of like, what is the impact that they have on the game, right? And so the reason why like I was harping on that whole encounter design, like player toolkit lever versus encounter design lever, at least from my perspective, being like a designer for a game involves thinking about that sort of stuff, right? So while I also program, right, the behaviors of the boss and how it moves and all that, I was the one who had to think about, right, right? I'm the one that had to sort of like sit down and decide out. I know the microphone went off. I'm gonna go get the food. I'm the one that had to decide for shootlanzer, right? Okay. Yes, I have to program like the weapons and all that other stuff, right? But I was also the one that had to decide their behaviors, right? The fact that there is even a single, a double, or a triple shot, right? Sorry, a single, double, or triple spread. My brain is having a fart. The fact that spread and shot types exist, I was the one that conceptualized those. I'm the one that sort of like decided the rules about how they work and how they interact, like what angles they fire at and all that. That was me. And a lot of that was me like sort of like tweaking and pulling at very specific levers one way or the other until the thing came out right. Or came out the way that we like it, right? And so my job, aside from programming the stuff in the game, is mostly just sort of making the decisions about what behaviors we see from the enemies, how those work, behaviors for how, like, just the underlying and underlocking systems of the game work. That is my responsibility, right? Okay. When was this from? All right. A resource that can store those allows for easy customization of control. Customize your action to set action key, create remap, use resource saver to save the spot. Okay. Interesting. But does this work for C#? A thing that I realized that I should have been looking at, that I stopped to like go check, is that I should have put control remapping higher up on the list.
Script that inherits from our button class is a pressed event, and next our turn, right? To update all of our key.
Okay, it's all GD script, so I can't use that one. Unfortunate. Right. Let me go back to the thing I was saying about like my job as the. So a lot of the friction stuff that I've been talking about previously, where it's like the balance between like encounter design and like player toolkit. That's like my job to sort of like oversee and adjust based on the feedback that we get, right? Obviously I can and will listen to like other members of the team if they have ideas about, hey, what if we do this? Hey, what about this? Hey, this, hey, that, right? And that's obviously fine. But a lot of it is dependent on partially what I'm hearing from like the players and things like that, but also to a certain degree, it's about certain That's the word. I have certain things that I have to keep in mind, also in parallel with the things that like players talk to us about, right? And that's the other part of like the friction that sort of comes in. Because like I said earlier, you want players to have to sort of make saying meaningful decisions can be loaded in certain contexts. You want players to have to sort of deal with the friction that exists between their toolkit and their I appreciate that, Shark. Thank you. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. No sweat if it's a little early. It makes sense because like shenanigans happen, and so there's a pretty good chance that if I do pick somebody, if I'm talking too long, they might finish before I get to raid them, and then I start screaming again. You know, as it goes. Okay, me shitposting aside. Alright, the friction that I was talking about between, for action games, for example, like player toolkit and encounter design. It is my job to kind of like monitor that friction and see if it is maintaining at a level that is preferable, if it's maintaining at a level that we like, that we think is okay, right? And if the friction is a little bit too heat, right? If there are things that are too much in conflict, right? Then it's my job to kind of like figure out how we can adjust that friction a little bit, because we don't want it gone. This is the thing, right? Good games, well, not, I shouldn't say good. Games that are memorable, or games that a lot of people tend to like enjoy, or at least in my experience, is that people tend to enjoy games a lot more when there is still friction between, right, the things that they can do versus the situations that they are in. Right? When you force people to have to make a decision between how they navigate the situation they're in with the things that they can do, that is when you start getting interesting gameplay, right? And so that's why earlier when I was talking about this as applies to shootlanzer, I'm like, the main sort of like levers that I pull for some of this, aside from enemy bait, right, is that Leona's spin and Leona's movement speed are both kind of like integral. Because if Leona moves too quickly, then spinning becomes less important, because all she really has to do in order to like get around enemies is just outmaneuver them. But at the same time, Leona can't move too slowly, because if she moves too slowly and she doesn't have spin up, then it's like, okay, I guess I just eat these shots and die. And that's sort of a thing that we had to deal with in earlier versions of the game, which I still have, like lying around. Earlier versions of the game where Leona was not as fast, and when her spin did not last as long, and when her spin took longer to recharge, right? That was a little too frictionful on that side, because it created a situation where it's like, okay, right, like positioning yourself to actually like avoid getting like your shit pushed in became a lot harder, right? Sorry, I had to just test something real quick to make sure that like touching the enemy actually like does damage to you. Almost got it. So if I wasn't very deliberate about where that friction was, it would be a thing where it's like, right, Leona doesn't move fast enough to stay alive when she doesn't have spin up, and her spin takes so long to come off a cooldown, you don't get to use it as often as you would like, right? And so finding the sweet spot between all of those things, right? That in and of itself is very tricky. Have you ever done any? No. I will also be honest in saying that there is probably a less than 0% chance. Okay. I'm going to speak for myself, separate from Munity. Because if I lock this into us, if I say the wrong thing and lock us into something one way or another with Munity by some nonsense I said, then that will be bad. For me personally, separate from Munity, I do not have any intention of ever developing for iOS. I am not going to say I will never develop a mobile game. But the primary reason is that Apple and trying to develop apps for Apple products at this point is like pulling teeth. And that is not, I'm not trying to mess with that. But that is me personally. If for whatever reason Munity had the opportunity to like do that in a way that was not absolutely like pain inducing, I would not say, I'll put it like this. By my own choice, I would prefer to never work on an Apple product. Let me explain why, for people who are like, I don't really get it. So here's the thing, right? Pirate Software, if you like follow him on YouTube or watch his shorts or whatever, he also discussed this. But to explain it very simply, Apple basically requires you to maintain a developer account that you have to pay for in order to be able to like actively like develop stuff for their devices. So if you want to like put Mac support in for a game, you have to pay for a license to do that. I think it's like yearly renewals, right? And on top of that, you have to use very specific like also to properly greet you, Grio Grio. Welcome on in, Grio Grio, to the Gage Gang. I'm happy to have you here. Sorry that you've now caught me on the tail end of like an Apple rant. You keep our followers anonymous so that people don't feel like they have to like break lurk or otherwise get like exposed. If you just want to like follow and lurk accordingly. But to the new follower, welcome on into the Gage Gang. I hope you enjoy your time here. But yeah, I personally just don't play any mobile games anyway. Why the hell would I ever game on a Mac 7 PC? Yeah. So like on top of the developer fee, right? There are very specific compilation tools that you have to use in order to make sure that your stuff works on a Mac. On top of that, there are certain like rendering, like ways that the game displays itself to a display. There are certain rendering, like rendering backends that are specific to Macs that just are a pain to work with. The long and short of it is that Apple, because Apple made the shift to making their products a walled garden relatively, right? What's the word I'm looking for? Because Apple chose to move toward making their products a walled garden much faster than Microsoft did. Not that Microsoft has not done it or never done it, right? Or that they're not doing it. Because Microsoft is, right? 100%. But Apple was very much on the no, we're different, we're doing it our way, this is our way sort of way of doing things. And they've been that way much longer and much earlier. And the end result of that is that there are a specific set of foibles for how you develop for Apple that has now made it like a pain in the ass to do that, right? Like, shootlanzer is not getting... Let me phrase that more carefully, sorry. Back that up. It is extremely unlikely. Let me preface it like that. It is extremely unlikely that shootlanzer is ever going to get a Mac release for this reason. Because we have to not only get a Mac to develop on, we also have to pay the fee to Apple to be able to do that. And then we have to figure out how to make sure that Godot can actually compile the code on a Mac and not completely flip its shit. So I highly doubt, I'm not going to say never, but I highly doubt right now it is not in the cards, for example, to put shootlanzer on Mac. If we were to try to do shootlanzer on mobile or something, right? Highly unlikely that we would ever put it on iOS for similar reasons, right? Mobile development in general, and this is, again, I am not speaking from the perspective of this is Munity's official position. No, this is me1 Sean saying this. Mobile development is also really dicey. Well, game dev in general is. I'm just going to be upfront about it. Especially with like sort of the current environment that we are in, game dev, you're playing craps. You're taking those dice and you're playing craps, 100%. Mobile dev is, if you don't have advertisement and resource stuff, like mobile stores are so full of some real schlock, like rampantly. And it is very, very hard to get like staying traction on mobile. It's not impossible, but you have to work real hard. And you have to do that with other games, with like other platforms too. But like mobile's that real shit. By comparison. Real talk, something real nifty to create would be character creation tools for TTRPGs. They tend to tell decently most beta. Yeah. The main thing for me is that I'm gonna go get my food out of the microwave because like my stomach is grumbling a little bit. So I'm just gonna talk loud while I go pull that. The thing about like, data entry, for me in particular, I never learned how to work databases like that. So it is probably a skill I could teach. I never learned enterprise app development like that. Because the interesting thing would be that, right? You would have to be able, just off the top of my dome, right? Because I'm thinking about that sort of thing. You have to be able amongst many other things, be able to program your program, look up specific, like, unless you want to like completely elide it and just be like, you need to do error checking through another source, like the handbooks manually or whatever, right? Need to be able to reference whatever source books or source material for whatever system that you're using, right? and do a bunch of other stuff that sort of like helps verify that players aren't like building wild ass characters unless you want, as the DM or GM, to like actively check that yourself. And then it becomes a question of, right, if we take that approach, how do we then make sure that we don't I know a thing we can work on, because we're almost done with stream. I'm just going to do a thing real quick where I do option submenu. Remap controls. Let's just crack open this one. All right. Options submenu. Visibility. So yeah, I'm not going to get too deep into this because we're probably not going to have a bunch of time. So let me think. Oh dear, this just became a little complicated. All right, hang on a second. It's the part where I get to pull up MS Paint. Oh. Okay, cool. Okay, so I got to think about this. So this is, let's say this is the window for our remap, right? So ideally, the header is up here. Header is up here, right? Then we have 3 columns, and we have like the text for things like move, keyboard, input, and this is the controller input, right? Shoot. So we'd have this one displayed here, this one displayed here. Shoot, this one displayed here, this one displayed here, right? So what this basically means is that really that big square is split into this big square is split into like 2, maybe 3 rows, right? But we have this one here, we have this row here, and maybe one at the bottom. But the second thing in the row has to then be split into 3 columns. But then inside of those columns, we then have to split. It starts getting weird and complicated. So for right now, here's what we're going to do. Here, right, we have vertical layout. Here's what we're going to do. I need control nodes. I need 2 other control nodes, right? And then we're going to have the options menu buttons. bottom. So this control node need like what, 500 here. Yeah, we'll do 200 here. Because what's the size for this one? Layout is 100. So we have 720, 300. We have like 425. So 100 to over here. So 100 and 100 is 200. 720 minus 200 is 520. So over here, we'll do this. Minimum size here is 520, right? So now, right, we have the header. We have the section that we're going to further subdivide right here. In the section that we're going to subdivide, I'm going to change this to a HBox container, right? Inside of this, we're going to have 3 control nodes, right? So layout, minimum size is 1280 cut 3. 1280 cut 3. 1280 cut 3, right? So now we have the 3 separate columns that we want, right? But inside of this one, we also need vertical layouts. So we're going to change this control node to the box container, right? So we're going to say control labels, or rather, this is input labels. Or alternatively, thinking about it now, a way that I could do this is rather than subdividing it in all of these little ways, I could probably just, if I step back a little bit, and I just leave it at, like here, if I switch this to a vertical, right? Change type, I'm going to do VBox container, right? The reason why I switched it here is because I can now, if I so chose, right? I'm going to change this to HBox container. So I'm not making any actual programmatic function for any of these yet. I am just taking a little time and making sure that this is kind of like all set. So layout, yeah, that's 0. Custom minimum size is horizontal. So cancel this, throw this in here. Okay. Minimum size for this is like 100. What's the minimum size for that? Okay. 100, right? And now, just have, for example, that control node. We have this control node, this control node, this control node, right? So now, right, we could do as an example, we have shoot. Getting off the bed. Enjoy the stream. Was interesting to listen to. I did some work. Goodbye. All right. Later, Larry. Rest well. Thank you for stopping by. Now, I would have to like I'd have to mess with this a little bit in order to get it to like actually center all the way down, obviously. But if I have this, so I'm just going to use these rich text labels as ways of like demonstrating this a little more clearly so that I'm not going to like actually set these up in any meaningful way yet because doing that is a little more out of like we're not going to have time. I have like 14 minutes before the next app. But, right? We could imagine that here's one more thing, actually. There is we're going to just add another control. So this over. Now what we need to do is 1280 cut 4. Turn this over. 1280 cut 4. Here. 12 cut 4. Here. 1280 cut 4. So this way we know for a fact, right? That each of these things is like handled accordingly. Okay, so, right? I can take, let me see here. This, we can just do change type H box container, right? And now all we really have to do is like I'll just grab like these, paste those under there, hide that one, right? Here I can say keyboard. And over here I can say controller. Right? And we can take this even one step further if we want to. Layout, let's just do this at like 75, just to make this a little bit. I'll make a new control node, put it up here. So, 75, 520, 100. Okay. 75 plus 520, 100. 5, 100, 695. So I don't have that much space. 720 minus 695 is 25. So I need to like adjust that down a little bit more properly. So really, realistically, layout, let's just take Put that at 100. Put that at 50. So this is like 150. Yeah, 150. So 150. So 720 minus 150 is 570. So 570, and how big is this one? 100. So 470. This is like 470. And we're good, right? Here we can just do All right, Sebi. Right? And yeah, the text is like really small, and I will adjust that at some point, right? But basically, oh, even better. Peep this. I just had a genius idea. Check me out. I'm a genius. Hang on a minute. I gotta remember which one is which because my brain. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's literally right here. Options menu buttons. Go into my button. Action prompt is what I wanted. Actually. Change type. Action. Action. Here, I need action prompt. Here, we want fire. Here, in the middle, icon is keyboard. Right? Copy this, go over here to this one, get rid of that. Action prompt. Here, Xbox. Right? As an example. Obviously, I can configure this so that at some point it will and does use a different set of buttons depending on what kind of controller you have plugged in. But we can do that for now. Yeah, I need transform. Okay, action prompt. Set that. We're just going to scale it up. Oh, goodness gracious, not like that, please. Anyway, I had to like sit down and figure it out. But the main point of what I was trying to do here is largely that like I can just have the keyboard and controller glyphs laid out here and make them change automatically. I'm not going to actually touch any of the code for that yet, though, because that's shenanigans. We are at 9:09, so I think it is about time for us to make dip. So let me put on music because I turned it off because we were like jumping in and out of game stuff. So, all right. Getting up out of here. Thank y'all for coming by. Deeply appreciate it. Stream plans. We are playing some DNF Duel this Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time for Fighting Friday. So come by for that. We will resume Breath of Fire 4 this upcoming Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So come by for that. Yeah. As reminders for where you can find me and stuff. I do game design analysis design articles over at Co-Host. You can talk to me there if you want to find out stuff about that. My tasking design posts are up at sn-heron.medium.com on that link there. Stream VODs, if you want to like catch up on stuff that you missed. Stream VODs go up a couple hours after like stream, like they go up automatically after stream is over, so you can go check them out over there. Ko-Fi, if you want to support me and the stream but don't want to give money to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, Ko-Fi is the way. I keep more of that money from a monthly subscription on Ko-Fi. I keep like $4 and change out of a $5 subscription. If you want to like support things like the extra monitor arm that I now have, thanks to contributors on Throne, you can go to my Throne and like support other ventures like that are related to like contributing to like Steam items and Steam gifts and things. And my card has all my other social media links on, but mostly I'm primarily on conversations. We are going to go hang out with we haven't been by. I feel like we haven't been by Chris One. So we're gonna go hang out with Chris One. He's a variety streamer, but his main thing plays a lot of PSO2. I'm curious to see what state that game is in right now. So we're gonna hang out with him. Give him an SHS raids when we get in. Let him know who sent you. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear masks. Don't go outside if you don't have to. Be excellent to each other. But not the bigots, racist, terrorists, sexist, anti-queer folks, or Zionists. Black Lives Matter. Trans rights are human rights. Everyone has reproductive rights. Period. Palestine, Sudan, and the Congo must all be free. That's pretty much the way that it works. I'm gonna get us out of here before ads hit. I'll see y'all when I see y'all, whenever that is. Take care. Later.